Hi, hello and welcome back to F1 Challenge VB. My name is Mephisto and our journey through the history of Formula 1 continues today with the opening round of the 1965 season, the South African Grand Prix. But before we begin, as always, I would like to thank everyone who's taken part in the straw poll, as well as everyone else who's been following this channel. You guys are amazing. We are still a small channel, but we are slowly growing, and that's all thanks to you. I only make videos and upload them, but it's obviously up to you guys to decide whether or not my content is worth subscribing to, and it seems that at least for some people it is, which makes me quite happy. Anyway, let's have a look at the poll results. There were a total of 114 votes. That's over 1/3 of all of my subscribers. That's also the most people we've ever had in the polls, which is really awesome. With that said, let's break down the poll results. Ian Raby Racing, Reg Parnell Racing, DW Racing Enterprises, and RRC Walker Racing Team haven't received a single vote. LDS received 1 vote. Scuderia Centrosud and Owen Racing Organization received 3 votes each. John Love Racing had 4 votes. North American Racing Team received 5 votes. David Prophet Racing, Cooper Car Company, and Brabham Racing Organization received 6 votes each. Team Lotus had 7 votes. John Wilmot Automobiles had 12 votes. Ferrari received 13 votes, making them the 3rd most popular choice. Honda Research and Development Company were the 2nd most popular choice with 22 votes, but the winning team is Otello Nucci Racing with a total of 26 votes. So that is the team Andy will be driving for in this season, and I'm looking forward to it, although I feel we might struggle a bit this season, but that's okay as long as we can have some good racing. Once again, thank you to everyone for taking part in the poll, and thank you especially to those of you who follow my channel. Without you, this would all go to waste. With that, let's take a brief look at how the real-world 1965 season played out. The 1965 Formula 1 season started on the 1st of January and ended on the 4th of December. It consisted of 17 races, 10 of which were championship races, whilst the remaining 7 were non-championship events. The Drivers' Championship was won by Jim Clark, who won 6 of the 10 rounds and scored a total of 54 points. Graham Hill ended the season in 2nd. He scored 40 points, or 47 if we are to count the dropped points, and won 2 of the remaining 4 rounds. And 3rd place went to Jackie Stewart, who scored 33 points, or 34 with drop points, and he also won a race during the course of the season. In the Constructors' Championship, Lotus were crowned victorious. They won 6 of the 10 races and scored 54 points, or 58 if we are to consider the dropped points. BRM finished the season in 2nd. They won 3 of the remaining 4 races, scoring 45 points, or 61 with the drop points, and the 3rd spot went to Brabham Climax. They haven't won a single race this season but scored 27 points, 31 with the drop points, enough to give them 3rd. So that was a brief look at the 1965 season. Thankfully, 1965 didn't claim any lives, which is always a good thing to hear. So all that remains to do is take a quick look at the opening round of the season, the South African Grand Prix. By the way, I decided to go into a bit more detail when talking about each race, so this section is going to be slightly longer than before. I only wish I would have thought about this earlier, but alas, I didn't. Anyway, the South African Grand Prix was held on the 1st of January. It had 32 entries, 20 of them took part in the race with 4 ending up retiring. The race consisted of 85 laps completed in 2 hours, 6 minutes and 46 seconds. Jim Clark started the race from pole with Surtees in 2nd, Brabham 3rd, who finished the race in 8th, Spence was 4th on the grid, Hill 5th, and Lorenzo Bandini started from 6th. He eventually retired on lap 66 due to a problem with the car's ignition. Jim Clark drove superbly to win the South African Grand Prix. Surtees crossed the line 29 seconds after Clark. Graham Hill gained 2 positions and ended the race in 3rd, 31.8 seconds behind. Spence kept his starting position and finished 4th, 54.4 seconds behind Clark. Bruce McLaren gained 3 spots, thus crossing the line in 5th. He was 1 lap down, and Jackie Stewart, who started the race from 11th, rounded off the top 6. He was 2 laps adrift. Jim Clark was on a roll as he also posted the fastest lap of the race, and he did it on lap 80 in 1 minute 27.6 seconds. We once again find ourselves at the East London circuit, where a lap starts off with a long run down into turn 1, a high-speed right-hander. Be careful not to let the car go too wide though. Turn 2 is next, a fast right-hand sweeper, which leads into the Copacabana hairpin. Brake just as you reach the pole on the right and take your time through the corner. Turn 4 is another fast right-hand sweeper, and it leads into the S's. Make sure you start braking as soon as you straighten up your car, otherwise you are going to miss the chicane. Cox Corner is next, a medium-speed left-hander, which is followed followed by turn 8, a fast right-hander that leads onto the back straight, which ends with Beach Bend, the last corner on the track, a tight right-hand hairpin that brings us around onto the main straight, and that is a lap around the East London circuit. And here we are in qualifying, coming around to set our first flying lap here at the East London circuit, a 128.245 second lap, which apparently puts us into 11th. Then I managed to improve a little bit on that to a 127.434. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to do much more than that, so that's going to have to do as we take a look at the previous South African Grand Prix winners. We haven't won a race here yet, but hopefully that will end soon, and we are back at the East London circuit after a 1-year break, so looking forward to that. Last time we didn't do too well, but hopefully this time we won't retire as soon. Anyway, we have Graham Hill on starting from pole with Jackie Stewart in second, John Sturtis third, Lorenzo Bandini fourth, Ronnie Bucknam starting from fifth, and Richie Ginster rounding off the top six. Then we have Denny Holm in seventh, followed by David Prophet in eighth. Richard Atwood is ninth, followed by Maston Gregory in 10th. Frank Gardner is 11th, followed by Gerhard Mitter in 12th. In 13th we have Andy Hicks, followed by Bob Bondurant in 14th. Ian Raby 15th, 16th is Innes Ireland. Lucien Bianchi 17th, 18th Paul Hawkins, John Love 19th, and Sam Tingle bringing up the rear in 20th. So that is a great lineup for today's race. Hopefully we'll do well on the opening round. Again, we didn't do very well last time we were here. We retired quite early on, I think within the first 5 or 6 laps. But anyway, we are off and everyone's very slow off the grid. So I kind of get bogged down. There was not much I could do, nowhere to go. So I had to kind of pull out of whatever maneuver I was trying to do as Bob Bondurant gets ahead of us, and we are now down in 14th as we come through turn 1 here. Bob Bondurant goes off the circuit. Can we regain that position? No, somehow he manages to keep his speed going off that circuit. I'm not quite sure how, as we take a look at another look at the start of the race, and there we go. For some reason some of the cars don't have wheels in the replay, which is quite weird. And as we come down into turn 1, oh no, on some cars the tires seem to not render when they are far away, which is kind of weird. Anyway, we come through turn 1 and Bob Bondurant there, we saw him go very wide and somehow still manage to keep his speed as we now come through the final corner here. Beach Bend closing in on Gerhard Mitter a bit, who was overtaken by Bob Bondurant at some point, as we now come around towards the end of lap 2 now, and we go I go very wide, and that causes me to lose a bunch of positions. We are now down in 17th, right behind Paul Hawkins. Hopefully we can gather ourselves together and start moving up the field. That would be very nice. We didn't do very well up until now. And here's a replay of Peter Love coming out of the final corner and onto the start finish straight, and there is a Scuderia Centro Sud car right on the middle of the track, stopped for no good reason, I don't think, and Peter Love crashes into him, loses his front right, and he's out of the race. The Scuderia Centro Sud somehow got back into the race. I'm not quite sure how, as we now move on to lap 4 here, just about to overtake Ian Raby there. We did it, and we are 16th. That's very nice. And however, as we reach the Copacabana hairpin, Raby managed to overtake us once again, so we fall down to 17th once again. That's not very good. However, it seems that he's slow once again, and we pull right beside him through the sweeper and outbrake him coming into this chicane. A bit late on braking, but we managed to keep it tight, even though a bit sloppily. Now moving on towards the end of lap 5, and we just overtake Maston Gregory for 15th, which is absolutely fantastic, and we're now looking at David Prophet. Hopefully we can overtake him as well at some point during the race. hopefully sooner than later. Obviously that would be the best outcome as we now move on to the end of lap 7, and we finally managed to overtake David Prophet. However, I go a bit wide, and that allows... Actually no, I thought Master Gregory might be able to overtake us, but he didn't. We are still in 14th. Now moving on to lap 8, coming into the Copacabana hairpin, and we just overtake Paul Hawkins. Actually the final corner, sorry, I'm messing up today here. I overtook Paul Hawkins for a brief second, then he got back at us. However, as we now come into the chicane here, I once again managed to overtake Paul Hawkins, and we are now in 13th, hopefully, and this time I managed to make it stick. Later on we had Paul Hawkins had some problems with his car. We can see him coming out of the final corner, and he just stops in the middle of the circuit because that is so safe to do. Not quite sure what happened there as we take a look at a replay of Ian Raby coming out of the final corner as well. Kind of slow there, and there we see Hawkins right on the middle of the circuit, and well, that's kind of self-explanatory, although I'm not quite sure why Raby didn't try to avoid him, because well, he could have seen him. Anyway, we now move on to lap 12, chasing after Innes Ireland. At this point he's about 5 seconds up the road, so we have quite a bit of work to do before we can catch him. We are pulling away from Maston Gregory, however, so that's quite good as we now take a look at a replay of David Prophet coming out of the final corner. Goes a bit wide, tries to avoid crashing into the Scuderia Centro Sud there, and just stops his car in the middle of the circuit for no reason. Again, I'm not quite sure what the AI is doing today. Anyway, we are just about to finish lap 12, and we are still closing in on Innes Ireland. We are about 3.3 seconds behind him, so we are catching up as we take a look at a replay of Sam Tingle, who comes out of the final corner. Apparently has a problem with his gearbox, so we should see him pull into the pits right about now. Actually no, I have no idea why, but he decided to not use the proper pit entrance, just cut across the circuit for some reason. Now we move on to lap 18th, and a couple of cars were stopped on the circuit, which means we move up into 11th, so that's quite nice. That the people who were stopped were Denny Holm and Gerhard Mitter, and here is a replay of Denny Holm in the number 2 Brabham coming out of the final corner onto the main straight, and we see him kind of crashing into one of the Lotuses there, that of Gerhard Mitter obviously, and here is a replay of Gerhard Mitter coming through the final corner. He pulls to the right there and steers clear from everyone, but then he decides to cut across the track and stop in the middle of the live circuit. I'm not quite sure what he was thinking, why anyone would do that. Anyway, we now move on to lap 20, and Richard Atwood is now out of the Grand Prix, as well as we are chasing down after Frank Gardner. And here is a replay of Richard Atwood, who has a problem with his suspension coming out of the final corner of the circuit there. He pulls off the circuit and he is out of the race. Obviously with his retirement we gain another position, so we are now in 10th, which is quite fantastic, as we now skip to lap 26, still chasing after Frank Gardner. It looks like we won't be able to catch him anytime soon. That's kind of a bummer, but that is that. However, Lorenzo Bandini retires from the race, and that moves us up into 9th, and here is a replay of Lorenzo Bandini, who has a problem with his brakes, goes straight off the track, spins a couple of times, and he's out of the race. And thankfully he didn't retire on the same circuit, same part where everyone else. Anyway, I was starting to run out of fuel. I tried to go into the pits, but as you could see, no, the pit crew didn't actually spawn in, and then I tried again on lap 27 and the pit crew still didn't spawn in, and that was quite worrying because I was literally running on fumes. I only had 5 liters of fuel remaining, as we take a look at a replay of Innes Ireland coming through the final corner here, and he well, stops in the middle of the road as we see Andy Higgs going through the pits there. And luckily the race ended quite quickly after that, and we still had fuel just about to finish the race as we take a look at a replay of Ronnie Bucknam in the Honda coming around to post the fastest lap of the race. There is Richie Ginster right in front of him as he crosses the line to take the win of the South African Grand Prix. So congratulations to both of them. And maybe if he would have had a little bit more time, he would have overtaken Ginster and won the race, but that didn't happen. And here is a replay of Ginster coming out of the final corner and around to finish the race and take the win of the 1965 South African Grand Prix. So congratulations to both of them. They did a very good job here today, so quite nice for them. Obviously not so good for us. We are out of the points, which isn't all that good. And here we are coming around to finish lap 28, and so John Surtees just retired from the race, which means we move up into 7th, just one spot below the points. And here is Surtees coming through the final corner. I think I've seen some smoke coming out of the car. There it is. Yes, there's smoke coming out of his engine. He retires just a few meters away from the finish line. That's not very good for him. As we take a look at the race results, Bondurant, Ginster wins, Bucknam second, Bondurant third, and we just ran out of fuel. Graham Hill fourth, and you saw the rest. And here are the retirements. Quite a few people retired, although not the entire field, so that's quite nice. And some of the people who retired actually managed to complete 90% of race distance, so they are actually classified as finishers. But anyway, that was the South African Grand Prix. Not a very good result for Andy, but could have been worse, I guess. Anyway, here are the career statistics, and this was Andy's 132nd Grand Prix. His best start is from first, has 12 pole positions, has set 22 fastest laps. His best finishes in first, has completed 87 races, 69 of them in the points, has won 40 Grand Prix, 4 at the Indianapolis 500, 6 in Monaco, has 8 championships under his belt, has scored a total of 470 points, has retired 45 times, has experienced 2,873 out of 3,526 laps, has 6 bronze trophies, 15 silver trophies, 40 gold trophies, and as an extension, 40 podiums. And here is a quick look at the championship standings. Obviously, Ginster takes the lead in the championship with Bucknam in second, Bondurant third, Graham Hill fourth, Stewart fifth, Frank Gardner sixth, Andy Higgs is seventh, not very good. And at the very bottom of the standings, we have John Love in 20th. Now let's move on to the constructors, and here we have Honda taking the lead of the championship with North American Racing Team in second, Owen Racing Organization third, John Wilmot Automobiles in fourth, Otello Nucci are in fifth with no points, Ferrari sixth with no points, and bringing up the bottom of the constructors are obviously John Love. So that was the South African Grand Prix. Very good race for Honda. I'm sure Andy now wishes that he would have stayed with Honda, not move over to a new team, but hey, that's that, I guess. So congratulations to Honda, they're doing very well. They've started off the season quite surprisingly. I'm really impressed. Looking forward to see what they will be doing this season. Again, I don't think we will be doing anything good. The car isn't quite as fast as most of the other cars on the grid, so we will be struggling quite a bit. Anyway, our next race is the Monaco Grand Prix. I'm looking forward to that. It is always a very interesting track, and it can on occasions bring some interesting and surprising results, so that would be quite interesting to see. Maybe, who knows? Although I'm thinking a little bit ahead of myself, so let's just wait until we get there. But anyway, that is the end of this video. Once again, not a very good race for Andy. Managed to finish just outside of the points. However, that was mostly due to the fact that a lot of people started to drop towards the end of the race, and the people that started dropping were people who were in front of Andy. So if they would have stayed in the race, I'm pretty sure that we would have been much lower down the field, which isn't very promising, but hey, what can you do? Anyway, you can already start to vote for next season's team. Link is in the description as always. I also have a second channel where I will be playing all sorts of different games. At the moment, I'm doing a playthrough of The Darkness 2 and the movies, so if you're interested in any of those games and more, there will be a link in the description to my second channel as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, stay sharp.